All right. So I was at work this week and somebody told me that I seemed like I would be a YouTuber. And I don't know what that means. Like, I don't know if that's a value judgment. I don't know if it's good or bad. So I asked him, like, what do you mean? And he just said, you seem like you'd be a YouTuber. Um, and I thought about it because, I enjoy creating things and I like talking to people. And I don't know. It feels sometimes like the stuff I'm into is so specific that there couldn't possibly be an audience for it. And sometimes you feel like nobody cares about what you're doing or is interested in it. Um, Also, I was thinking there's not really much that I do um, that a ton of people don't do. I don't play video games, so I can't Twitch stream. Um, I read a lot. Nobody wants to hear me talk about literature because I'm not particularly insightful about literature. I really enjoy film. Again, nobody needs another podcast about movies, right? Although I do own the gear from when I was going to start a podcast about movies. Um, it's in a box somewhere. Don't worry, I only spent about $1,500 on it. So I started thinking about kind of the things that are important to me, and what is different about me and what somebody might actually be interested in hearing about. Um, and there are a couple of things, right? I'm a sober guy. I've been sober for it'll be 5 years, 3 weeks from today, actually, which is something that I am. Um, I'm proud and also it's humbling. I find a lot of purpose within the recovery community and sharing my story and talking about those things. But I don't know if I'm going to talk about that here. Um, I've played music. I've done stand up comedy. I've done a lot of stuff, but none of those things well enough for anybody to actually take notice. Um, but you know what I do with my free time to kind of feel like I'm doing something and also like get centered. This is like a weird semi-meditative practice. I've for the last 7 years been working on a wooden matchstick model of London Tower Bridge, 6 foot scale. Um, I'm 7 years in, and I'm less than a third of the way through this build because I work on it so sporadically. But for me, it is not about finishing. It is about consistency of effort and the fact that so much of change in life is about work and time and hammering away in small increments consistently, which I'm not particularly good at. But this project is sort of an object lesson for me and something that helps me to remember how important it is to remember that time takes time, and that you really can accomplish um, impressive things by making consistent decisions day in, day out, and just deliberately chipping away at things. So here's what we're talking about. This is one of the two towers of the bridge that I've completed. Here's the other two. Here's the other one. So 2 towers, right? Weird hobby. It comes from a kid, by the way. There are, I'm sure, thousands of people who do this, and there's nothing particularly special about my ability as a model builder or anything like that. This is a hobby that it combines like my two favorite things: tedium and following directions. But there's something soothing about it. I got into this because I was having a conversation with my dad one day. We were talking on the phone, and I was talking about how, for most of my life, I'd gravitated toward kind of tedious hobbies that involved assembling things, and that think on some level, this is something that I have always done to manage depression and anxiety. And I remembered this interview with the author Nick Hornby, and he was talking about how when he gets blocked on a problem, he stops writing, and he has a desk with a jigsaw puzzle on it that he's always working on. I don't know if he still does this. This interview was like 15 years old, but he was talking about how he would stop and start working on a jigsaw puzzle, and for whatever amount of time he needed to. And then when he would stop, he would find that often the problem had resolved itself kind of in the background, because he was keeping the part of his brain that does the crunching, the problem solving, engaged, and allowed kind of, I guess, his background mental process. By the way, I'm not a cognitive scientist or a psychologist or any kind of expert at anything, really. But I found it interesting because I recognized this impulse within myself to engage in these sort of tasks that allowed me to disengage the crunch part of my brain, the problem solving part, and just focus on something hyper specific. I am not gifted with visual artistry. I would never be someone who could create something from scratch without a plan. Again, for me, this is about following directions. Frankly, I started out with Lego sets, and they got way too expensive. So my dad remembered this conversation that I had with him, because he's a good dad. 2 or 3 months later, for my birthday, he sent me this kit in the mail, and you can find them online. I don't know if I'm going to buzz market them or not, but it's I think French Canadian company. And the box comes, they're relatively inexpensive, by the way. The box comes, it's a cardboard box, and when you open it, what's inside is a wooden block like this with 3 plastic clips, a piece of clear acetate, a stack of schematics that are like, I think, designed in AutoCAD, like 5,000 wooden matchsticks, and a bottle of glue, and this little cutter arm thing, which is just plastic with a razor blade in it. That's it. So this process involves you taking these wooden matchsticks and putting them on top of the acetate with a blueprint page underneath it. You glue it all down, you glue it together after you've cut each individual piece to size and to angle and sanded them to make sure that it all fits together, which I'm really bad at. Some of my angles and stuff on here are just unconscionably bad. Again, this is not a how-to. This is just me talking about a thing that I find helpful and sort of meditative. And it's one of the only things I know that I do that whenever I say that I do it, people are like, oh, that's interesting, and they have follow-up questions, or they say, you have the patience of a saint, which I do not. I'm an incredibly impatient person. Usually I've got a podcast on in the background, or a TV show, or whatever, but I can lose myself for 15, 20 minutes at a time doing this, and it helps me to sort of reset. So I think that on this channel, what you're going to get is probably me sort of musing about what I'm going through right now, maybe talking about some recovery stuff, maybe talking about something that I find funny, maybe talking about a show or a movie or something else, a book that I've been interested in or looking at lately. I don't know what this is going to be yet, but I'm going to come on here and I'm going to work on the model. And I'm going to talk about it a little bit. And I'm going to talk about some other stuff. And if you find it interesting or soothing, you're welcome back whenever. Like I said, this is a really large build. I've been working on it for a number of years, so I don't even know if you're going to notice any progress, but I'll always be working on it. And I don't know. Tell me what you think. All right. See you around.